And then, this might mean that you end up defining different products. You might have different packages. So instead of explicitly using dynamic pricing, you might say that, you offer a dinner and a show for people who you think are going to be the late bookers, and the margin on them might be a bit different to what it is on some other parts of your customer base. Ticket options. So there's things like, if I pay $5 for the option to get a seat, if there happens to be one in the venue on that day. So kind of a last-minute deals type offer. There's all sorts of different ideas there. But there's probably a good point to hand back to someone who's got more experience with the arts.
Thanks for giving us that background and context. I'll just put this over so the others can see. Yep. Is that right? I'll just get across. Thank you.
So yes, am I on? There we go. As Tim mentioned, Stephen and I are going to do a bit of a double-hander looking at a case study of how the Australian Ballet has implemented demand-based pricing. So just a bit of an overview as to what we'll talk about. I'll give a bit of background as to how we decided to implement this demand-based pricing project and the phased approach that we took in that implementation. We'll also look at some of the major issues that we needed to consider within that, and in particular how that affected the venue-presenter partnership. So the challenge for the Australian Ballet was to unlock revenue opportunities within our existing performance footprint without alienating loyal audiences through significant and across-the-board price increases. We undertook a research project with TRG Arts, who are a Colorado-based consultancy who specialise in revenue maximisation and patron loyalty in the arts. And the solution that came from this was to adopt a demand-based pricing strategy for our single ticket sales. So our pricing is dynamic based on real-time market demand. Now, the Australian Ballet's philosophy is that demand-based pricing must always be considered within a loyalty framework. However, revenue is of course integral to this, and we're not going to shy away from that. So at the risk of dropping my punchline too early, I'm going to go through what that actually meant for us from a revenue perspective. So in 2011, when we had our first model phased in, which I'll explain our modelling a little later, we had 6 of our 11 main stage productions in Melbourne and Sydney which were subject to demand-based pricing, and I was very pleased to hear Alon's figures on what is a reasonable return, because we saw an additional 8% revenue on our single ticket sales for that year. In 2012, we've adopted some changes to that pricing model, which has meant that just dynamic pricing can be applied to a broader range of performances, and our modelling